Hey everyone, if you have seen the most recent video on my main channel, you'll know that I recently upgraded my GTX 1080 and my personal system to a 3060 Ti. Now, you'd also have heard me talk about some problems I was having with the card. Specifically, the problems I was having were when the fans actually spin up. It doesn't happen all the time, but when the fans spin up, you can hear that the fan bearings are quite worn. So if you know what fan bearings sound like when they're really quite badly worn out, that's exactly what this sounds like when the fans actually get up to speed. So you can imagine how loud these will be considering they spin up to a couple thousand RPM. But yeah, how I intended to fix that was to basically remove the Shroud and stock fans and replace them with Noctua fans. Specifically, these Noctua fans here, which are their 92mm NF-B9 Redux fans, 1600 RPM EWM fans. This seems to be quite a common mod, especially for people with really small PC cases. But when I was looking into getting replacement fans, I thought I may as well do this instead of just replacing them with the same stock fan. I did end up having a couple of problems with the mod, but I'll get into that later on in the video. But before we actually do the mod, we need to have a look at the temperatures we're actually currently getting. So let's get the graphics card back in the PC and go and do that now. So I've had it idling here for about nearly 15 minutes or so. Temperatures are a bit higher now because I'm running NVIDIA broadcast to cancel out any of the noise for the microphone. But roughly after that sort of 10-minute period, idle temperatures were roughly 52 degrees with a hotspot temperature of about 63. It is a particularly hot day here. Ambient temperatures are about 27 degrees Celsius just now as well. But we also need to get temperatures for when it's under load, so let's move on to that now as well. So I've been running it for a little bit in Forza Horizon 5 just now, and we're getting about 73 degrees Celsius, which is somewhere between 70 to 75 degrees Celsius is about what I've been seeing when I've been using it. The fans also aren't actually making the noise, or the fan bearings aren't actually making the noise I mentioned, so I can't show you that. But I'll take a note of these temperatures we're getting and move on to actually swapping out the fans for the Noctua ones and compare the results and see what we get. Now, I am by no means an expert in this. It's just literally the first time I've actually done this. Copying it at your own risks. I won't be held responsible for any damage. But yeah, it should be pretty simple from what I've read online. The way I'm going to do it is that it has, you probably won't be able to see it on the camera, but it has a screw here, down here, and then the same on the other side. And those 4 screws basically hold the Shroud and the fans on. I don't know if the fans themselves are screwed into the heatsink. I don't think they are, but I guess we'll find out. So I'm going to try and get those tiny little screws just now. I might end up needing a smaller screwdriver though, but I'm going to give it a bash anyway. Managing to turn the screws. Ideally you'd probably want a magnetic screwdriver for this as well. Put that to one side. You definitely want a magnetic screwdriver for this. So I've got the final screw in them there, and I should just be able to lift the Shroud off. Good. I need to disconnect the fans and the LEDs though. Shroud off. It goes to show just how tiny that heatsink actually is. It is absolutely minuscule. To be honest, I'm surprised it's not hotter than, the card doesn't run hotter than it does. Probably able to see, that's the header both the fans connect to, and that's the one for the LEDs there. So you kind of need to be careful prizing them out. Careful when you're trying to get them out rather than yanking on the cables. Especially if, not only just to stop the header itself ripping off the PCB, but if you're considering selling your card at any point, then it'd probably be best to put the original fans back on. Unlikely anyone's going to buy a card that someone they don't know and therefore don't trust is modified. I might need to get pliers for this, but it's coming up at one end, but let's see if I can get pliers. I'll keep giving it a bash for now though. I've got one side out. And I'm bleeding, which is fantastic. It actually adds another 20 FPS at least, I've heard, if your graphics card can draw blood. There we go. The fan header is connected, it's the RGB, so it shouldn't be too as hard to get off as the fan header was. Oh, don't do that. So pull the header off the card a little bit. Damage the way it looks of it, so that's good. So I'm filming this all out of order, so I'm not sure if I'll have already shown you the fans yet. But yeah, the particular ones we're using are the Noctua NF-B9s. These are one of their 1600 RPM Redux fans. I have already done like a little test run of actually fitting the fans to the heatsink, but it was kind of a complete and utter mess, so I decided to actually do it again. But I have a better idea of what I'm doing now, at least. First things first though, I want to actually get the fans attached together so they're not actually going to go anywhere. I'm going to attach them from the bottom, so when they flip back over on the heatsink, the cable ties are going to be hidden away. Hopefully anyway. Trying to keep that in shot. So the way that's going to be sitting on the heatsink, the little bit on the cable tie there's not going to be interfering with it anyway. Let's get to the other side. So that's the side you're going to see when it's actually on the heatsink. So yeah, you're not actually going to be able to see the little bits of the cable ties here. So I need to have it in a place where I'm actually going to be able to run cable ties through the rest of the fan, the holes in the fans. Yeah, hopefully that'll be alright. So there is a bit of an overhang with the fans, and that is going to reduce the efficiency. By overhang, I mean like the very tips of the fans are overhanging the edge of the heatsink. So you are going to lose some efficiency from the fans, where the air, like on the very edges of the fan blades, are not actually going to be going through the heatsink. Some of it will get onto the heat pipes, but not the heatsink itself though. Right. Cable tie underneath heat pipe first, because that's kind of where I want to secure it. I have to tighten it all the way just now, just so I can play a bit with the placement of the fans if I need to. Get one on this side just now. Luckily the back plate goes longer than the actual PCB, so there's holes in the back plate. You can actually secure the cable ties to. Again, I won't tighten that up all the way just so I can play about with the placement of the fans. Another thing to point out, like you want the fans as flush with the heatsink as you possibly can to maximise static pressure. Otherwise you're losing efficiency again. I want to try get the other side now, so these ones up here. Right, this might be a bit difficult, this one. So having to go kind of sideways through it, because the bit in the back plate I'm putting the cable tie through, it's not quite big enough to actually fit the cable tie through. Again, I'm not tightening it all the way just now so I can play with the placement of the fans. Yeah. Try that one as well now. I'm planning on just plugging these into the motherboard and using a program to control the fan speed based on the graphics card temperature. But you can get adapters for these to plug them into the graphics card itself, so the BIOS can control it, or something like MSI Afterburner, or whatever your preferred application is for like overclocking and controlling fan speed and stuff. The ends of the cable ties cut off first, and then show you what it looks like. I'm not sure how well that's going to come across on camera, but like other than, you might not be able to see it from that angle, but other than like these sort of little tabs here in the cable ties, it's like not particularly obvious that they're cable tied down, which is nice. So yeah, I'd spent a not inconsiderable amount of money on this card, so I do at least, like I said, I want it to at least look nice because it is going in my computer. It's not just a project I'm going to get rid of at the end of the day, but yeah, that's that done. So let's get the card back in the computer and see what kind of temperatures we get, and noise levels as well, obviously. So noise level, actually, like I said, because I'm filming this out of order, I don't know if I'll already have said this, but I probably have. But the main reason for me actually doing this was to fix to sort out the sort of noise the bearings in the stock fans were making. But yeah, let's get this back in the computer and see what kind of results we get. So back in Forza Horizon 5, we've been going for pretty much the same amount of time we did before we fit the new Noctua fans, and temperatures are actually higher, to be perfectly honest, which is kind of disappointing. I mean, it is significantly, well, noticeably quieter, but we're seeing temperatures of nearly 80 degrees now, whereas we're seeing about 76 degrees Celsius last time. And it's the same kind of ambient temperature right now as it was then when I initially did that. It's just gone up to 80 degrees C there. Currently got a hotspot temperature as well, about 92.4. Highest has been 92.7, so overall temperatures are actually 4 or 5 degrees Celsius higher than before. Saying that, like, the fans are only about 1600 RPM, plus or minus 10%, whereas the stock fans were going, at this point, probably 2700, maybe 2800 RPM. So if I could get some higher RPM fans, then that would probably sort that out. I did also do idle temperature testing off camera as well, but there was basically no change there whatsoever, which I was kind of expecting because the way I've got the fan profile set up, the fans, the Noctua fans, are at a complete stop, just like the standard Zotac twin edge fans are. So in conclusion then, I'm a bit disappointed in the results. I was thinking the temperatures were going to drop, not just a reduction in noise, but the temperatures actually dropping as well. But in the end, we actually saw higher temperatures. Core temperature, or maximum core temperature, in a room with the same ambient temperature rose by 5.3 degrees Celsius, and the hotspot temperature rose by 4.6 degrees Celsius. So we are seeing a 4 or 5 degrees Celsius increase. Now, it's like still not hot enough to the point it's going to be dangerous for the card or anything, but yeah, it's disappointing from what I'd seen online going into doing this mod. Although what I will say though is that it has noticeably reduced the amount of noise the card makes at full load, which is pretty good, because as the temperature starts to get up over 70 degrees, the twin edge cooler does start to get quite noticeably loud. Not to the point of being intrusive, but it is quite noticeable. But yeah, that'll be it for today. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.